So when I got in the campus yesterday, I saw many of you so very well dressed, full of energy. And I must say, you reminded me of the time when I was your age, about to start my college. So much was going in my head. Everything around me was changing, but there was one constant. My parents, they are my constant. I really love them. I owe everything to them. But I must confess one thing. I always wanted a life which is contrast to them. And you may wonder why I'm saying so. When I was young, my father used to tell me, when he got to 10th standard, my grandfather said, I cannot fund your education anymore. I can't afford. So my dad picked on any odd job he could, finished his graduation, but he would often come to me and say, Sapan, I wanted to study a lot more. I could see that pain, that regret in his voice. But his urge to learn was insatiable. He did his master's, law, all randomly, nothing for his job. He even helped my mom finish her graduation. And I remember very vividly the days when my brother, my sister, mom, dad, me, all sitting in a room preparing for our respective exams. Yes, so no wonder this undying urge to learn I inherited from my dad. But I didn't want a life of regret where I look back and say to myself, wish I would have done that. This very thought became the driving energy in my life. Ours was a very simple family, limited resources, but nothing ever got wasted in our household. You see this picture? On the left, that poker-faced kid, that's me, right? And the shirt that I'm wearing, that was a hand-me-down from my brother. I absolutely love wearing that shirt until one day, tragically it ended. But it gets interesting from here. Few days later, I see my mom strutting around with a new shopping bag. I saw that, looked so very familiar to me. And then it hit me. Looks like my shirt. My mom had given it a second life. That consciousness about resources left a very deep imprint on me. So much so that the business that I'm doing is built on that very premise. Reduce what you need, reuse what you can, and recycle what you cannot reuse. There was one more thing I picked up very early in my life, that there is nothing that I can fall back on. It's only me to turn to. When I decided to be an engineer, self-study was my only option because in those days, in my town, we didn't have any coaching. So next 1 year, I was relentlessly studying. Cracked IIT, went to the campus. I had three choices: civil, mining, pharmaceutical engineering. The first two, for some reason, didn't excite me. So I was left with one choice. I had only one question in my mind. To the counselor, I asked, what about the job? And he was a very nice guy. He reassured me, in this branch, there is 100% placement. And that's the only thing I wanted to hear. Middle class boy, job guarantee, life set. And you would not believe that until then, I had no clue what's the literal meaning of pharmaceutical engineering. Few years later rather, it was the placement time. A lot of IT companies were coming. I went to every single one of them, put my CV. You know what? I got rejected in every interview. The reason? Mine was the only branch where there was no computer education. I was literally computer illiterate. Then came one company. The guy asked me, do you know computers? I said, no, sir. Have you seen a computer? I said, definitely. There is a monitor, there is a CPU, and there is a keyboard. Oh, you are very smart. Why IT then? I said, sir, I find computers very fascinating and I have aptitude. You give me a chance, I think I'll do very good. Very honest answer. I walked out of the room and I was expecting another rejection. But I got the offer. Just imagine now, a pharmacist sitting in an IT company trying his hands on coding. Yeah? But that was not the end of it. 6 years later, I just went to an Ivy League MBA. But that time, me, my wife, both of us had to leave our jobs. And my elder one was just 1 year old. A year later, I was sitting in a finance company. Now, just recap, a wannabe engineer, studied medicine, became an IT engineer, now doing financing. Ever seen any more confusing person than this? I doubt you would have, right? But this is where this particular experience, reassured me of one thing, that put me any zone, put me in any unknown environment, I'll come out very successfully. And this very self-belief opened my destiny to be an entrepreneur. You know, no one in my family generations have been an entrepreneur. But I had the deep desire that I have to create something of my own. And that's where, in my early days of the job, after office hours, I tried my hands on some odd businesses. I went to UK High Street, I remember, tried to sell my jackets. Then I tried my hands on selling old phones. None of those worked, none. But these early failures gave me three lessons. Entrepreneurship cannot be part-time. If you try and hedge your risks, you only think of risk. Secondly, your conviction, it cannot be borrowed. You need to believe in what you're doing and why you're doing exactly. Third thing, you need to plan for the best, but be prepared for the worst. Because from my experience, I can tell you, things will never go as planned. They will never go as planned. And in your journey, there will be many moments where your conviction will be challenged again and again and again by people who will just tear you apart, by mistakes that you will make on the way, by unexpected crises that you will face, and more importantly, your own fear of failure. And it will be only your conviction that will ensure that you do not break before you succeed. Right? Now you must be thinking, itna gyan de diya, but where I apply this knowledge in my own life? So let's talk about that. When I was in this financing company I talked about, one of my responsibility was to take care of used IT equipments that were coming back. And I used to meet many recyclers across countries. And in this visit, I had this shocking discovery. A lot of these used laptops had a lot of life left into that. But they were just getting destroyed, crushed. Companies will just say these are e-waste. They will not test the actual condition of those equipments. So I was feeling very restless about this mindless destruction. But it was the entrepreneur in me which saw an opportunity in solving for this problem. And I started thinking, how can I fix this? Can technology help me? And honestly speaking, I had no clue. How can I solve for this? But I knew I had to do something about this. But before conceiving a solution, I wanted to go deeper into it, want to understand why. So I went ahead and joined a e-commerce company, one of the largest e-commerce company. And that was a completely different environment, I must say. You know, the e-commerce companies were growing very fast. People were getting used to ordering things from home, getting it delivered on the doorstep. If today I can very safely say add to cart can be announced as our national sports. For many people, it's the preferred pastime. But you know, many returns are so absurd, illogical, that you will be just dumbstruck. And I don't need to go very far to quote example. In my family, one of my cousins, she had to attend a wedding. She ordered a fancy shoe. The shoe arrived. She puts on the shoe, walked across the house, took some selfies, you know, Instagram, very important. And after all this hard work, she decides, I want to return. And her reason, I didn't get enough like on my Instagram post. I looked at her. I really wanted to touch her feet because I realized there are people like her on this planet. Yeah. After, say, few years, when I was in Amazon, I noticed $1.85 trillion worth of returns get generated every year. And 30% of that just goes in landfill. That's outrageous. I mean, that's criminal. I wanted to understand why it's happening, why so many returns, why so much of wastage. And I concluded two root cause: inadequate system and processes, and lack of trust in used and second life products. Now, let me give you an example. Two phones, one with scratch, small scratch on the back, second not powering on. You will initiate a return, somebody will come, take it away. Do you know what happens after that? It reaches warehouse. Some lowly guy will have to just look at this and decide what to do with it. Now just zoom out. In this room, so many people, you're returning one or the other item, top, sandal, phone, speaker. Just then think at India level, so many people returning so many things. Now think the plight of this poor guy. He has to go through every of these items. Sandal, what's wrong with this? Let me decide what to do. Practically impossible. So what happens actually? Most of these items are marked for second life sale. Now, if you are a second life buyer, let me ask you a question. I have two phones. I want to sell it. And I say, here are two phones. I don't know the condition. I can't tell you. Will you buy that? In all probability, you will not. And even if you buy that, you will ask for a bargain price, penny for a pound. And this is exactly what happens. Part of it gets sold, penny for a pound, remaining goes as a waste. If I were to solve this problem, there will be four aspects in my solution: technology, collaboration, reducing the returns, and zero waste. And if I replay the same scenario my way, my system would first check, is this return genuine? You must have heard the stories. Phone went, stone came, right? Nike was sold, Nikki came back. Indian customers are very innovative about that, right? So you have to stop such unwarranted returns right at the doorstep. The second thing, the solution should give smarter alternative. For that phone with small scratch, you remember? What if my system says, hey, take some discount? You may also think, scratch, put a case cover, nobody will see that, take the discount. You are a happy customer, retailer is happy, no return came back. Think about the other scenario. The phone was not powering on. System will say, take it back. Now, the warehouse guy, he don't need to worry. System will work for him and decide what to do. He can play cards. System will say, not powering on, let me collaborate with the brand, connect with their system and tell them, your problem, please fix this. Now think at scale. Thousands of items come in. Well, systems are made to manage scales. So they can still play cards. System will work. But having said that, it's not an easy journey. Entrepreneurship is an emotional roller coaster. There are times you will find yourself standing alone. And I had my moments, many such moments. And during such triumphs and tribulations, the strongest support I had was my wife and my two daughters. And they are here today with me. So at Blubirch, we are doing our bit to support the environmental sustainability. But I personally believe a lot more can be done. Globally, today we are consuming 70% faster than what the planet can replenish. And if we do not stop this unbridled consumption now, then 15 years from now, you would not have fresh water. 23 years from now, you will not see fishes in the ocean. 75 years, there will not be any rainforest left. So establishing an equilibrium between consumption and replenishment is no more an option, it's a must. Now, before I leave you with this thought, let me share a closing story with you. In my school days, we used to play leg cricket. Does anyone of you know what is leg cricket? No? A simple general knowledge question, guys. So when you don't have a bat, your father doesn't give you money for bat, you use your legs to play cricket, right? And no wonder I used to damage my shoes every few months. But in those days, buying a school shoe used to be an annual activity. So you can imagine my father's fierce reaction. But I was also very stubborn. Khelna to hai. Dad being dad, he was very innovative, by the way. One day he picks my damaged shoe, take it to the cobbler and says, fix it with a horseshoe. Horseshoe. Make it damage proof. When he comes back, give the shoe to me. With a big smile on his face, he say, Jao, jitna khelna khelo, go. And I was shockingly surprised because knowing my father in such situation, he will prefer to talk with his hands, not with words. You know. But it took me one day to decode this secret bit behind his smile. When next day when I was in school, I could realize that the whole school could listen to my heel taps echoing in the corridor. Now think why my father came up with this solution. Was he worried about the environment? Probably not. The point I'm trying to drive is this conscious use of resources was deeply embedded in our cultural DNA. And the question I have for all of you to think about, can we embrace this very cultural DNA to lead the world, bring in our technology, entrepreneurship, innovation, and ensure that we leave a better, more sustainable planet for our coming generations? Just think about it, guys. Thank you.